Hi guys, and welcome back to my recap of Playday 2, the first Playday with the teams from Group B. Getting straight into things, we have Giants Gaming vs Ninjas in Pyjamas, and right from the get-go it was clear that Giants seemed way more aggressive than they usually were, but NIP were ready for it, and even though the half ended a close 3-3, NIP managed to show why they're better and win the map 7-4. NIP were actually being quite strategic on their defences, using C4s and smoke canisters to deal with the Giants' early aggression, rather than just peeking. I think it's quite interesting to see them use this utility and then try and frag out in the late rounds, because typically C4s and smoke canisters are used to deny the plant, but it seemed to work for NIP, so you can't fault them. The next game was Parabellum vs Oxygen, and the NA Juggernauts just speedran any percented Oregon, winning 7-0 against Parabellum. Parabellum played mostly on the defence, and they seemed to anchor quite a lot, and Oxygen just tactically took apart their defences with bursts of aggression when dealing with any opposition. Oxygen were just out of Parabellum's league, and it just showed. It doesn't mean Parabellum are down and out, it just means they start with a bit of a bad showing, and that's not to take away from Oxygen, as every player played their part in this game. The next matchup was MIBR vs TSM on Clubhouse, and weirdly enough, there was a no ban on the side of MIBRs for the attackers, which is a statement to say the least. Unfortunately, it didn't pay off, and TSM take the map 7-2, with the IGL achieved getting the final kill. TSM really showed that they can handle MIBR's aggression and managed to shut down the Brazilians. G2, take some notes. And it's hard to say if MIBR played badly, as anyone against TSM will probably look pretty bad, but they definitely had a lot to work on if they want to come out on the top of this group. The next matchup was Parabellum vs Mkers, and for most people, including myself, this game was probably going to decide who's going home in Group B, and after a somewhat close game, Mkers proved to be the better team and win the map 7-3. Don't let that scoreline fool you though, the rounds were quite close. Parabellum, having just come out of their Oxygen game, probably weren't feeling great, and I wouldn't be surprised if that played into their performance. No one on Parabellum did poorly for say, as a team they just didn't look up to the mark. The next matchup was the NA powerhouses of Space Station and TSM, and what a game. I'm writing the script as I watch the game, so this game is just finished, and when I'm saying this is by far the game of the day for me. Every time the stream switched to the player cams, win or lose, both teams were looking lively, and you could tell they both really wanted to win this. The game started close, with each round going back and forth between the teams, with the half ending 4-2 after a Bosco 1v4, and then SSG just couldn't catch a break from TSM, and TSM take the match 7-4 after winning 5 rounds in a row. Bolo and Rampy each dropped 13 kills and were vital to their respective teams. It was so nice to see Space Station look like themselves again, and even though they lost, they showed a lot of promise. They didn't seem to capitalise on many of the opening kills on their attacks, as they probably could have, but their mid-round adaptations and transitions to the executes were much better than they were at the end of the last NAL season, so Canadian is definitely having an impact already. TSM obviously played a great game too, and I can't wait to see them against Oxygen in the next few playdays. The next match was NIP vs Mkers, and NIP just picked apart the Italians, as any top team should be doing. Navi, take notes. Honestly, this game was on at the same time as the TSM vs SSG, so I didn't watch the whole thing, but every time I clicked back, I saw someone on NIP getting a 2 or a 3k, and apart from a clutch by Acqui from Mkers, there wasn't anything that really impressed me. The next match was Space Station vs Giants, and after SSG's performance against TSM, I was pretty confident they'd win this one, but I didn't think they'd win it 7-0 OXG speedrun style. Canadian was absolutely massive in this game, clutching out 2 rounds and only dying once throughout the whole game. Giants got a bit flustered it seems, and maybe their 7-2 loss against TSM from earlier was still on their mind, I'm not too sure, but regardless, Canadian is nuts and SSG sweep Giants. The penultimate matchup was OXG and MIBR, and MIBR looked quite standard, but Oxygen just looked a bit lost on Consulate, and they were being very hesitant on their attacks and struggling to punish MIBR's aggression. To be quite honest, I'm not too sure why OXG picked Consulate. Maybe they thought they'd get an easy win against MIBR and not have to use a map they were going to use in the playoffs, i.e. saving strats, but if that's the case then they vastly underestimated MIBR, but regardless, MIBR win the matchup 7-4. The final matchup of the day was TSM vs Mkers, and Mkers actually win this one 7-4. Yeah, I'm really not sure what to say. Mkers just completely obliterate TSM. Just TSM weren't clicking heads, and Gemini and Acqui were for Makers. It just was insane. It was actually quite funny. Scatter on Mkers only got 1 kill in the whole game, and that was in one of the final rounds. So that just shows how much of a carry Gemini and Acqui can be when they're popping off. This is a massive blow for TSM though, as every game counts for this top team, and trying to get a good seeding as possible, they need to win a few more, but as long as they get into the upper bracket, they'll do just fine in this tournament. That's all for today. Thank you if you've made it this far, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for Group A's second playdate.